Okay, today we are going to make some borax crystals, and you are going to be amazed because within 24 hours, even within 12 hours, you're going to have some really big crystals, like the size that the sugar crystals that come on the stick when you go to the fair are. So we have some boiling water here. I'm going to turn that off so I don't burn myself. The reason we want the water to be boiling is so that when we put the borax in, it will dissolve. So the hotter your water is, the more it will dissolve. We want not a saturated solution, but a super saturated solution. We want as much borax as it will hold as possible. Please don't burn yourself when you're trying this. Now we want our crystals to be colors. You don't have to use colors. It'll look like ice crystals if you don't. But we want ours to be colors. I cannot find the food coloring that I used for our activity the other day. I did not put it away yet. So I have some leftover Easter egg colors. So I dropped in a blue one and a green one to give us a nice bit of aqua color there. So I've gathered my supplies here. I'm going to need some pipe cleaners. I'm going to need a stick to put across there to dangle our crystals down in. I'm going to need a thread to tie those to. You can use dental floss if you don't have that. We wondered about using fishing line. I'm not sure if that will melt in the boiling water. You might have to try it out and let me know. Some scissors to cut that with, and of course our 20 Mule Team Borax. Looks like our color is getting in there nicely. Okay, so what we're gonna do to make a super saturated solution is, let me cut this open a little more. We are going to pour in as much of the borax as it will hold. So if we pour it in and it dissolves, then we're gonna pour in some more. The woman on the internet said she used 2 cups for a liter. I have a gallon in here. I did not use the metric measure, so I'm gonna put in about 4 cups or so. You know how I measure. I'm gonna stir that in there. When I scoop up from the bottom, I'm not seeing very much borax, so that means it dissolved. So I'm gonna put in even more. The more, the better. The borax cost me about $6 at Kroger. In the laundry section, most people use it to sprinkle into their laundry. It's not soap, but it makes the soap work a little bit harder. Once we get this in here, I'll talk a little bit more about borax. I'm still not seeing, we're gonna put lots in. We can reuse this solution, so it's okay if we use a lot. You might have some borax still laying around your house from when you were using it for making slime. Borax and water and Elmer's glue make great slime. I'm sure that you may have known some people that have experimented around with some other slime recipes, but they seem to all have borax in them. It's a linking agent, works really well for that. Okay, I'm starting to see that there is just a little bit that's not dissolving. So I think that's all it will hold. It is super saturated. So now it is time to take some lovely little pipe cleaner creations that we have made. I made this one look like a flower or a clover, and this one looks more like a bird nest. Miranda made that. Gonna try to make it look like a geode, and we are just going to submerge those down in there. We did that by just taking these pipe cleaners. Miranda used 2 when she twisted hers around. I only used 1. We'll see how that goes. From the crystals that the students in the past have brought in, you want to make sure it does not touch the bottom, because if it does, then it'll crystallize all over the bottom and your crystals will stick to it and they'll be all glued in there. So some kids have brought in the whole pan to show us the crystals that they grew. So you want it to be just dangling in the middle. So I experimented around with that string to get it just the right distance off the bottom of the pan before this, because you don't want that to cool down. So now we are just going to cover that with a cookie sheet. Keeps cats and kids and everyone from getting in there. And we're gonna leave that. And in about 12 hours, we're gonna have some nice crystals. It's a little after midnight now, so around lunchtime tomorrow, those will be ready. So what is borax anyway. A little name card here for it. We call it borax. It also has some other names. Sodium borate, sodium tetraborate, or disodium tetraborate. This is what the recipe for that looks like. We've talked about our periodic table being like the little recipe for everything in nature. Everything you can think of is made of things on the periodic table. So when we're talking about our borax in here, the borax that you use for making slime, it has sodium in there, just like is in your salt. It has boron in there. This little 4 means we're going to need 2 sodiums, 4 of these. It's got oxygen in there. We're going to need 7 of those. And then it says times 10 H2O. And we're familiar with H2O with our hydrogen and oxygen. We're familiar with that being water. So where did borax come from anyway? Well, this little thing says from the kitchen of Francis Marion Scott, because he is the guy that started selling 20 mule team borax in the United States clear back in 1891, long time ago. They mine it in the United States out west where the lake beds have dried up, and when the water goes away, what is left behind are all of these little crystals that they have picked up. So they used mules, these donkeys, to haul that out of there. In Boron, California is where they mine a lot of it. But that's not where it started. Clear back in the 8th century, it started in Tibet. Tibet is where they first found that. Now, this is only for the super nerds. So the rest of you might want to shut this off, but this is just for the super nerds who like to do things like read the encyclopedia like I do. So I know that we use borax for cleaning. It makes our laundry even cleaner than soap alone because it softens the water. And I know that we can also use it to make slime. So what else can it do with it? So I looked it up. It is also used in flux for welding and for jewelry making and soldering. It's used in cosmetics. It's used in enamel glazes on pottery and ceramics. It is used in fire retardant, which is what was like a solution that we sprayed on those curtains at school, so we'd be able to use them at school. The fire marshal didn't want our curtain to catch on fire, so you can treat them with something like that. You can use borax they use borax to make some of that. It can be an antifungal, so if you know anybody that gets athlete's feet, or if you have horses that get thrush in their hooves, you can soak them in water and borax. Because it's an antifungal, they also use it in insulation because we don't want the insulation on our walls to get all fungusy and moldy. They use it for making fiberglass. They use it to add texture to food because it does make things stay firmer and more rubber-like. They use it in caviar, but not in the United States or in China or Thailand, so you're probably not going to eat any of that. They use it in photo developing, clear back when we used to write on stone tablets when I was a child, when our photographs were really an actual thing we held in our hand, not just on our phones. We developed those, and they use it in there. It is used in insecticides. It keeps moths away from wool. It'll deter cockroaches. You can sprinkle it around the baseboards where you have ants, and it will keep those away. They used to make a liquid out of it and paint it over some foods like ham, because it gave it a nice pretty look and it kept the flies away. They use it in gold mining. Mercury is used in that process. It's a really heavy liquid metal that we've talked about in class before that's kind of bouncy that we're not allowed to play with, but it's such a cool metal. I wish we could. But it's really bad for you, and they use that in gold mining. Well, they have found that they can use borax instead, much safer. They figured that out in the 1900s. I learned a new word, tackifier. It's a tackifier. I like that word. It makes things tacky. It makes things sticky. So you think about that slime and that stickiness, now it holds things together. So they use it for making things sticky with adhesives, like in envelopes and things. It can be used as a buffer in your pool for the pH. If you have a swimming pool at your house, you know that sometimes it gets too acidic and sometimes it's not acidic enough, and you can use that in there. It can be a curing agent for snakeskins. If you know anybody that has a snakeskin belt or snakeskin boots, they take that snakeskin and they can cure it with borax. It's a preservative for taxidermy. So if you know anybody has a fish on the wall or a deer head, borax might have been part of that process. when you're playing with slime and you think that it's kid stuff, it's important to remember that borax is a neutron absorber to shut down nuclear chain reactions in spent fuel pools at nuclear reactors. Who thought the stuff that you use for slime could keep things from reacting in a nuclear reaction? And probably the coolest one, it is used to color fire green. So if you have some crystals that you are making and you've got extra solution when you are done with this, you can heat it up and it will dissolve all back again, and you can make more crystals, add more borax to it, keep doing more. You can suspend a bunch of pine cones in there, and then the next time you're having a campfire, throw some of those pine cones that are covered in crystal in your campfire, and it will make some green flames for you, and that will be fun. So we will check this tomorrow. See you at lunch. Good night.